On the 17th of September 2011, the first protest of what was to become the international Occupy movement took place on New York's Wall Street. Frustrated by the corrupting influence of corporations on the government, the Occupy movement aimed to encourage political reforms to the policies contributing to the ever-rising gap between society's rich and poor. Occupy highlighted how the world's defenders of democracy, such as the USA and UK, operate a political economic system that disproportionately benefits the minority at the expense of the majority. With this increasing disillusionment with our governments and questions over whom they really serve, the question arises, are we living in a fake democracy? A key difference between a democracy and a dictatorship is that political authority is supposed to be vested in the masses, but our politicians are overwhelmingly from the elite in society. In 2011, after the UK election, it was revealed that of the 119 government ministers, 66% were privately educated, compared to just 7% of the wider population. Meanwhile, the US has a history of political families dominating government, suggesting that rather than power being shared amongst the population, it is overwhelmingly shared just amongst the 1%. In the UK, more than 200 MPs engage in nepotism, employing members of their own family to take on government roles. The democratic process of voting itself can be misleading, as the popular vote doesn't necessarily translate into leadership. This is seen in both the UK and US electoral systems. The lack of women and ethnic minorities within Western governments also raises the question of how our supposed democracy can meet the needs of the whole society when significant groups are not represented. Furthermore, politicians do not appear to act in an accountable way to the electorate that voted them into power. This was seen in the UK 2010 general election, when the Liberal Democratic Party went against their pre-election promises to scrap university fees and instead tripled them once they gained power. Whilst being told that public money could no longer be used to subsidise the cost of education, the electorate also learnt that public finances were being used by members of parliament to fund extravagant lifestyles. The problems are not unique to the UK alone. Western democracies are deeply entwined with capitalism. It is argued that economic independence is essential to ensure political freedoms. However, social anarchists believe that capitalism in fact undermines democracy, as the money of major corporations literally buys influence in government. In 2013, documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act revealed the shocking extent to which giant energy companies were manipulating Western democratic governments against their own citizens. In Canada, North America and Britain, intelligence services have been spying on anti-fracking and anti-capitalist protesters, and sharing intelligence with energy corporations and banks. In the case of TransCanada, it suggested to the FBI and US Department of Homeland Security that non-violent protesters could be detained under criminal and anti-terror laws. In the UK, energy policy has been drafted by people transferred straight from UK gas corporations. Whilst democracy is defined as government by the people, exercising our power seems to be limited to once every few years when we get to vote. Other than that, we have little or no involvement in how we are governed, whilst the non-elected bodies of the state, such as the police, are able to demonstrate real power that unquestionably oppresses certain people more than others. Even more concerning are reports that in some democracies, eligible citizens do not get a vote at all. For example, in 2000, numerous reports suggested that George W. Bush's mandate to rule was based on rigged elections in swing states. Just before the presidential election, Florida officials destroyed 100,000 registered voter forms, wrongly claiming that the registered voters were convicted felons, or dead. This left many unable to vote, even by the following election. Even when voter registration forms haven't been purposely destroyed, democratic governments fail to engage poor people in the political system. In the US, only 47% of eligible poor families voted in 2012, compared to an 80% turnout of those with annual earnings over $100,000. This suggests that our perception of democracy is directly influenced by how comfortable our living conditions are. And so, as the gap between rich and poor continues to become ever evident, so might the reality that we are living in a false democracy.